It's the Sittin Sportside podcast, exclusively on 1045theteam.com.
Oh, yes, it's that time of year, baby. It's 1045 The Team's baseball previews. Major League Baseball starting very soon. The reason, of course, while we're doing the Major League preview of the AL West, the division preview of the AL West, games start Wednesday, March 20th in Japan. So I'm looking forward to doing this. That's why we're starting with none other than the American League West. And before we get into and start dropping the music for the preview, I just want to give a quick shout out to my co-host Mike James while he is recovering from, I believe, an ACL tear, something about like that. So he might be cooped up a little bit. That show that we announced earlier is still going to be giving it a go. I will be doing that show Sundays, 11 a.m. Sittin Sportside Sunday. Looking forward to that and being with you guys. So, of course, wishing a speedy recovery to Mike James. He is the man, and he is going to be surely giving us his previews. I'll announce him on the show. Maybe he'll call in. I don't know yet. But that last podcast that I was teasing, maybe a little bit different than I was thinking, because he might not be able to join us in studio. But we'll definitely get you his picks. And I don't think it's going to affect this. I will give you, like in the past, I will give you this podcast my top 5 teams. So I'm going to give you the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll know my division winners when all these are said and done. But I think we'll do one final podcast before the season starts. Really, we're going to have to start cranking these out because it actually starts, everyone starts a week from this Thursday. So we got to start cranking those out. So I'll try to do that, but we'll have one last podcast where I will give you the MVP picks, Cy Young, World Series picks, and then the wild card. So you'll get my second place teams, but you won't know which ones I'm taking as my wild card. Although by my reactions and my thoughts on the teams, you probably can tell based on those as well. So let's get things started right here. Yes! The American League West, the teams in this division seem to be year in and year out kind of the same teams are running the show. For lack of a better term, the Astros have been dominant. Maybe that is the right term. Look at last season. The A's were in it, though, a long way. They gave the Astros a run for their money, so maybe it's not so cut and dry, but the talent, to me, continues to transcend. In Houston, it's a no-brainer. So let's get you caught up on my thoughts on the Houston Astros and the move that they made in this past offseason. Of course, last season, the Astros had the second best record in all of Major League Baseball, right behind the Boston Red Sox. They finished the season with 103 wins, 3 more than the New York Yankees did, who had the third best record in all of baseball. The Athletics had 97 wins, Mariners 89 and 73, so a pretty solid season for them, but they fell out of the playoff race middle of the season to those A's, even though early in the year the Mariners were looking good to try to make that run. 2 games under 500, the Angels that ended up, so Mike Trout continues to be in a place where he's not getting postseason ABs, and then by 13 games, and 36 to the Astros, the Rangers finished in last place with only 67 wins on the season, although it was good for only 5th worst in the American League. So there we go. Houston Astros, let's get you caught up. They're still my first place team going into the season. Coming in first place, I have, of course, the Houston Astros. They continue to throw out players like George Springer, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, all their studs last season, though. Altuve was injured a little bit. Bregman seemed to be the breakout guy from last season for the Houston Astros in that category in terms of a breakout. Carlos Correa, also a down year last year. Not that Altuve had a down year, but the injuries obviously kept him from having his full throttle season. But Carlos Correa looks for him to have a bounce-back season. So I think with all those 4 guys, they still have one of the best offenses in all of baseball, with Yuli Gurriel at first base and really the DH spot up for grabs. Now let's talk about, before we dive into the DH spot and the DH position for the Houston Astros, I got to talk to you about Michael Brantley, their big acquisition, in my opinion, for left field. He really replaces Marwin Gonzalez. I can't really remember the left fielder for the team last year. It feels like it was Marwin, but this is the right way to go. I'll give you my thoughts on Kyle Tucker in a little bit. He didn't run away with the left field job last year, which they thought they might have gotten out of the young kid. But Michael Brantley's coming in, and Michael Brantley was such a big part of the Indians teams that were very good over the last few years, even when he was injured. But when he came back, he was a really good player. And last year, he played 143 games. He got 570 at-bats, and it was a really good season. He batted .309. And you look at his last full seasons, really, when he plays a big sample size, he's always around the 300 mark. Ever since 2014 when he hit 327. So this is a guy who's going to continue to get on base, be a really good contact hitter, and get the bat on the ball. Drove in 76 runs with 17 home runs. He doesn't strike out a ton. This is a guy that fits into this mold. They have a lot of guys that strike out. Of course, Springer strikes out a ton. Bregman and Correa strike out their fair share. Gurriel. But Brantley's the type of guy who's going to put the bat on the ball. And this is a perfect insert for the Houston Astros to be even that much better offensively. I think they haven't gotten worse. They've only gotten better with the addition of Michael Brantley. Josh Reddick still holding it down in right field. And I mentioned my guy, Kyle Tucker. They still have him. If everything happens injury-wise, they still have him to fill out in the outfield, as well as Derek Fisher, the former Valley Cat. So that is someone that they have depth, is what I'm saying. Even though they traded J.D. Davis, they still have Tyler White, who's going to start the season as an underrated designated hitter for them. Tyler White, when he's gotten opportunities, he's hit his share of home runs. Last year, ended up with 12 home runs, 42 RBIs, and he hit 276. Not as many games in 2017, but he had 279 in his 68 Bs there. And he actually had a decent 2016. If you remember when that season started, he fell off and only ended up hitting around the 220s. But he had the power numbers, 8 home runs in 85 games. Not great, but he was actually impressive there for a nice stretch. So if he can continue that for the full time, and he's gotten better as 2018 showed, Tyler White is actually an underrated designated hitter for them. I don't think they've lost anything at the DH position. If my memory serves right, I could be forgetting a big time hitter. I know they had Beltran the year that they won, but I don't think they've lost much. The most that they've lost is probably Brian McCann at the catcher position and Martin Maldonado. Great defense by both those catchers, and of course McCann can really hit right-handed pitching. Robinson Chirinos, though, is the guy that former Texas Ranger in division change. He comes in, and he's an underrated hitter himself. He had 18 home runs last year and 360 at-bats, so he can really put the bat on the ball power number-wise. On-base percentage is in over the 300s, which is not anything to be impressed by, but it's still something to say, look, this is a guy who's getting things done from the Houston Astros for sure, and Robinson Chirinos is actually a good replacement for McCann and Maldonado, that kind of that platoon that they had going on. So the offense, what can I say about the offense? That's all we can say. And there's a lot of good to say about the rotation, but does it go past Verlander and Cole? Justin Verlander, don't need to say much about him. He's continued his dominance since coming over to Houston. He's found kind of a spark plug to be an elite pitcher yet again. As much as it pains me, that guy continues. I guess cat's out of the bag. I'm not the biggest Verlander fan, but he continues to do it year after year. He's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, definitely top 5 in the American League, and he's going to continue to do it. And he's challenged right behind him by Garrett Cole, whose strikeout numbers skyrocketed since coming over to the Houston Astros. But they do lose some big guys. Dallas Keuchel, who still remains on side as we record this podcast at 6:40 on March 18th. They also lose Charlie Morton to the Rays, and last but not least, Lance McCullers to injury. So that's the last 3 other starters. Who do you go to? You bring in Wade Miley, who was underratedly good last year for the Milwaukee Brewers, who were a playoff team, an NLCS team. So Wade Miley is a guy to keep your eye on. That's a big acquisition for them. I don't know if the cross-league thing will make him worse, but I still think that Wade Miley is a big-time player for this team, especially replacing. He's not going to be able to replace those guys great. That's going to be a tough task, but he's a good fill-in, or a good enough replacement, in my opinion. I think he's an underrated guy. He's not going to move the needle for anyone listening to this and being like, oh, great, they got Wade Miley. No, but he actually is underrated. Keep your eye on him, and don't sleep on him. Colin McHugh will also fill in as well. He moves his way back in the starting rotation. He has been okay in starting rotation throughout his career. Of course, he had that big-time season for these Houston Astros in 2014 when he had a 2.73 ERA. Last year, he ended up with a 1.99 ERA, but didn't start any games. So that's where we're coming into. He's moving himself back in the starting rotation and seeing if that he can carry over the success out of the bullpen last season, where he only pitched 72 innings. So that'll be interesting if he can do that. I would expect the ERA to fluctuate towards 3s as it used to be. Brad Peacock seems to be the favorite to get the 5 spot. He's looked really good in spring training. You also have Framber Valdez, and then you have Jesse James and Forrest Whitley, 2 prospects. James actually pitched in the majors last year and looked really, really good down the stretch, including in the playoffs out of the bullpen. So I would look for James to take over for the 5 spot. Excuse me. I will look for James to take over the 5 spot at some point in the roster. I'm going to leave that in. We're human. All right, it's a podcast. I can cut it out. The music's still going, though. But I do expect James to take over for that 5 spot. Forrest Whitley could be up, though, and bump either Miley or McHugh if either of them aren't performing, or if they want to put McHugh back in the bullpen, where they actually have a pretty solid back end of that bullpen. Starting with Will Harris, going to Chris Davinsky, Hector Rondon was actually a decent closer for them down the stretch. Now that he's not a closer, he's a pretty solid 7th or 8th inning guy. Ryan Presley, an underrated guy that you might not be well adverse to. And, of course, Roberto Ozuna. Of course, we have the problems. You all know about the issues that he's had last year, but he was back on the field. He was very good for them, and he's a really grade A closer for them. So look for them to have really one of the most well-rounded teams in all of the American League. They're going to probably go over 100 wins again this year and run away with the American League West. Second place team, here we come. Man, I don't know if I can go away from this team, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick with the Oakland Athletics. Even though we're talking about a small market team, they didn't really lose much. They bring back Chris Davis at the designated hitter position, coming off his 4th straight season, hitting .247. Crazy, right? If you hadn't heard that stat before, it's nuts. Look it up. See if you get to go to Vegas and say he's going to do that again. He's a career .248 hitter, and for the last 4 seasons, he's hit .247. Last year, he ended up with 48 home runs and 123 runs batted in. So look for him to continue more of the same. They bring back Matt Chapman, one of the best young third basemen defensively, probably the best in the American League at third base, maybe in all of baseball, right behind Nolan Arenado of the Colorado Rockies, who they were actually went to the same high school. I believe they were high school teammates. They at the very least went to the same high school, which is crazy. They bring in Jurickson Profar to take over at second base. That's the one detraction that I guess you could have is the Jed Lowry season, which was actually really good for them last season. Can Profar do that? He was really good for the Rangers last year. Another in-division move there, but Profar can really do it. And Marcus Semien has shortstop. They bring him back. Mac Olson as well, Piscotty and right. And then now you have Ramon Liriano, a great defensive center fielder, having every opportunity to take it over for the entire season. He was really impressive for them down the stretch. In left field, it's going to turn to Robbie Grossman, or probably a little bit of a platoon with Robbie Grossman and Mark Canha. Of course, Chris Davis can play outfield as well, but he's probably going to be mainly DH duties as well. Franklin Barreto, not sure what they're going to do with him. He's a nice shortstop and second base guy who's behind both Profar and Semien. Profar could probably play left field for them if they need to. He did it in Texas. So if they feel like they need to want to move Profar's bat to left and bring in Barreto, I think that's going to be an okay option. The catcher position continues to be I don't know about a platoon, but they have 3 solid guys in Chris Herman, Josh Fegley, and Nick Hundley. I think they're all capable right behind the plate, especially with the bat. So I'm actually really bullish on this offense to be just as good. I don't want to say just as good, but very much on the same par with the Houston Astros. I think it's an underrated lineup, but I think it's really, really good. Olsen, Davis, and Piscotty are all top guys. Chapman can take another step forward and continue his power numbers up there. And I think Loriano, Semien, and whoever they have out there in left field are very, very good. So looking for this offense to continue to do what they did last season and be very impressive, especially when you're anchored by the good Chris Davis hitting 40-plus home runs at your cleanup spot. Let's go to the pitching. This is where the team kind of falls apart, though, a little bit. I don't want to say falls apart, but where the question mark truly lies. Mike Fiers, who you acquired at the deadline last year, is truly your ace. Marco Estrada, a nice acquisition. He could probably get a little bit help from the ballpark change from Toronto to the Oakland Athletics. That's a big thing for him. So maybe he can actually have a huge bounce back year, because Estrada has actually had decent seasons with the Toronto Blue Jays, pitching a lot of times at Rogers Center. So when I look at what he did back in 2015, a 3.13 ERA, he was very impressive. And his ERA has been over 4.98 the last 2 seasons, or I said 4.98 or over the last 2 seasons. So he hasn't been great the last 2 years, to say it lightly. But he's had a sub-4 ERA the 2 previous seasons. So, move the ballparks. You're pitching every day at the Oakland Coliseum, or, half your games at Oakland Coliseum. That helps you a little bit, I think, the ballpark change, and that's why Estrada can have a nice bounce-back year. Past that, you're looking at guys who aren't solidified. You're talking about guys who are probably going to be in the rotation to start the year, but you have some young guys that I'll get to in a little bit, people coming off injuries, and guys who are ready to go, who are best pitcher probably isn't even going to be on the roster starting day. We'll get to the guys who are probably going to start right off the bat. You got Brett Anderson. He's going to have another opportunity to do it with the Oakland Athletics. I mean, obviously, he had that early season. Last year, though, was okay when he pitched for them in his second stint with Oakland. Not holding my breath there. Frankie Montes, I like him. but there's still some question marks around him, whether they want to move him to the bullpen. The 3.88 ERA last year, I think, was impressive. If they can improve on that, he'll probably stick in the rotation. But like I said, there's other guys who are going to be knocking on the door. But the problem is you need 3. And Montas is probably the most likely to stick in there. You're also going to have to go with Aaron Brooks, Chris Bassett as well. Will have opportunities unless they start going with openers, as they did in the AL wildcard game last year against the Yankees. You remember that. Liam Hendricks, I believe, started that game as an opener, led up a homer to Aaron Judge, and didn't really work out. But they went with an opener, so I wonder if they will continue to experiment with that. Bob Melvin and the Oakland Athletics. All these teams might do it, too. I've heard Aaron Boone might do that as well. Of course, we'll touch on that when we get to the AL East podcast. Let's talk on the young guys. Starting pitcher, Jesus Luzardo. Probably the best pitcher on this roster. He might not break camp. Probably won't break camp with the Oakland Athletics, but he should be up mid-April, at the latest mid-June, latest mid-June, probably more realistically, probably in May. He'll be the number 1 starter, ready to go. So guys like him, Jarrell Cotton, and AJ Puck coming off their Tommy John surgeries, their injuries, they're guys I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in here too. So there's the injuries, and then you have Sean Manaea, who also is coming off his own injury and may be able to come after the All-Star break. It's a little bit shady. We don't really know for a fact what's going on with these guys, but I like the potential of who might be coming to improve what is a pedestrian pitching staff right now. Bullpen, though, has been really good. Blake Treinen was the best closer in all of baseball last year, maybe right behind fellow division mate who's no longer in the division, Edwin Diaz, who was on the Mariners last season. So they had a really good bullpen in this league, or in this division. Past that, Lou Trevino and Joaquin Soria, Yasmero Petit, Fernando Rodney, Rick Bucher, all solid options. Jerry Blevins now a lefty specialist who might be in his last year being able to face only one batter, right, with that new rule change. Like this team, man, I think the bullpen is going to be good enough to win these games, but the starting pitching isn't good enough, and the offense, I think, will be able to come back and win games if they need to, if the pitchers aren't as good. But look, these aren't pitchers that are gonna give you above 6. I mean, remember, you had Edwin Jackson come and pitch for this team last year, and it was really good. I trust this team, and I trust Billy Beane to be like, look, we have a team that's good enough to compete right now with offense. We're going to need to bring up guys, so Luzardo should be up sooner rather than later. I like the chances of him, Montas, even AJ Puck to be very, very effective for this team at some point this year. Puck obviously later than the first 2. Let's go to number 3, and of course I'm going to have more unrealistic expectations for this team. Is this the year the Angels get better with Mike Trout? I mean, are they going to have to get better before he's a free agent for him to be like, you know what, I definitely want to stay in LA? I'm not saying that's going to be something that needs to happen, but maybe it is. And of course, the Mike Scioscia tenure is done. It's now Brad Ausmus's team, and maybe that will change things going here. Outfield is still solid, although Cole Calhoun was very, very bad a lot of times last year. He picked it up, but he's going to have to be more consistent, although they don't really know have a guy to go to past him. So there's that. Unless they teach Shohei Ohtani or Bohr or Pujols to play in the outfield, they kind of got themselves a logjam. I'm not sure the GM did the best job here, but Upton, of course, and Trout left and center, really good options there. Zach Kozar, if he plays the whole season, if he can get back to what he did the 2017 with the Cincinnati Reds, I think this is a really good infield with Anderson Simmons at shortstop, probably the best defensive shortstop in all of baseball, and he's a really good hitter. He can get on base as well. Kind of an underrated guy. He hits for singles, doesn't hit much for power, but he's actually a really impressive guy. An average last season of 292, but he gets on base. He doesn't strike out a lot. Only 44 strikeouts last season. He puts the bat on the ball, plain and simple. Second base probably will be David Fletcher. It's going to be his second year after half a season last year. Only hit 1 home run, but 275 average. So it's a solid average, but the power numbers are even worse than Anderson Simmons. Justin Bohr and Pujols, I mentioned them, and Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani's probably going to miss the beginning of the season, so it'll be pretty easy to go Pujols, DH, Bohr, first base for most of the season. The minute Ohtani comes back, they have a logjam. What are they going to do? Not play a Bohr? They can't play Bohr, Pujols, and Ohtani. So I have no idea what they're going to do there. But those are 3 solid batters when they're all, because the fact that you can't have all 3 of those in the lineup, that stinks. Those could be 3 of your top 5 hitters, 3 of your top 6 hitters. Although Pujols, a lot of people think is washed up. I don't. I think he continues. He's not the same guy. He's not worth the money he's being paid, obviously. he's still getting you a decent amount of home runs. And he's hit for average a lot in spring. I think he's still worth a roster spot. I don't know why people hate on him so much. Probably because he gets paid as much as he does. Jonathan Lucroy will be behind the plates. The offense we know is actually good enough. But that's the thing. I think Ohtani put him over the top last year, but the pitching is still not great. Tyler Skaggs at the top, injury prone. Andrew Heaney, he's having injury problems. Past that, now you have Matt Harvey, Trevor Cahill, Jaime Barria, Nick Tropiano, Felix Pena. None of these guys are stepping out to you. Pena's actually had a decent season last year. I actually had a lot of faith in Pena. Cahill has been pretty good in his stops the last couple of seasons. But nothing, and Harvey, can he get a renaissance year? Can he get back to that stuff that he had with the New York Mets in the Dark Knight days? These are all question marks, and it continues to be question marks. If Heaney and Skaggs aren't pitching, this is not a good starting rotation. I'm sorry, it just isn't. So I don't trust the starting rotation. That's why they're in third place. But I think their offense is good enough. I think that the bullpen has gotten a little bit better. Of course, I think Ty Buttrey is a really good guy out of the bullpen. Cody Allen's their closer. Cam Petrosian can be really good. I don't think he's a closer. Obviously, last year he didn't knock down that role. I guess I'm saying the offense is good enough. I have a lot of faith in Mike Trout to stay on the field most of the season and get things done. And the addition of Bohr and being able to play Ohtani more could help them out a little bit here. I guess I have faith in their offense. I don't have a lot of faith in their pitching, but I guess maybe the other two teams just aren't good enough to get here. That's my thoughts on the Angels. Don't think they're probably much better than they were last year, which, like I said, was only 2 games. They're 2 games under 500. I actually think they're better than that. I think they'll be over 500 this year, but not by much. Let's go to the Mariners. That means I don't have the Mariners that much over 500 at all. They lost a lot, right? This is a team that sold. They sold their closer, Edwin Diaz. They sold their second baseman in Robinson Cano. Who else did they trade? D. Gordon, they traded. No, just kidding. He's still here. Psych. They traded somebody to the Indians. Who am I missing that they traded to the Indians? They traded Carlos Santana, who they got for Gene Segura. That's another name that they lost. Gene Segura, they traded to the Phillies. So they got Edwin Encarnacion from the Carlos Santana deal. But he won't be on the team much longer. He's a flip guy. They're hoping that he can have his hot start to the season and they'll flip him before the deadline. But guys that they got for very good prices. Their next Mitch Haniger, who's really good in right field for them, is Domingo Santana. Really good year for Santana with the Brewers a couple of years ago. Kind of got Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich out of that outfield. And now have an everyday opportunity here. Look, Kyle Seager's going to be out. Ryan Healy probably moved to third. That leaves first base open for Encarnacion or Dan Vogelbach, or however they want to do it. I'm not necessarily sure. Jay Bruce has an opportunity to play a little bit here. This is a good, decent offense. D. Gordon, Tim Beckham had a resurgence a couple years ago. Maybe we can get back to that. If Malvik Smith is healthy, that's a speedster at the top of their lineup. That will be really good. Omar Narvaez will kick behind the plate. It's actually an offense that has a lot of solid guys. I already mentioned Haniger. Santana could have a really good year. If Seager ever comes back healthy, I don't know this year. I'm a little suspect about him. But, there's him. But, look, I'm not holding my breath on this team. But what I will say is that their offense has relatively got some good pieces. And while I don't think it will hold a candle to the top 2 teams in this division, the Astros, the A's offense, I think it's something that they have. They have something that could really take off. And if their offense really puts it together, I think their rotation is actually good enough to be better than what I'm putting them at. I think that their rotation also pitches really good, but Marcus Gonzalez has been so up and down in spring training this year. I don't know what Yosei Kikuchi, the guy coming over from Japan, he's such a wild card to me. I have no idea what to expect from him. Mike Leake, I don't know what to expect out of Mike Leake. He's so up and down. Felix Hernandez is such on the downside. I have so much faith in this guy's baseball IQ to come back like a CC Sabathia after losing a lot of miles per hour on your fastball. I have a lot of faith in him to be able to come back and say, look, what? You know what? I can really learn how to pitch. I can change how I use my soft stuff and how I use changing of speeds like CC Sabathia was able to reinvent his career. That's what I'm looking for here. But that's still a wild card. And then Wade LeBlanc. A lot of faith in Justice Sheffield if they ever bring him up. Probably won't do that until June. I think this is a long wait for Justice Sheffield. But that's the thing. Like, you have guys, you put it together on offense. The pitchers have are more consistent, like Gonzalez. And Kikuchi's actually a really good pitcher. Is it okay? And Hernandez gets better after being snubbed as their opening day starter and losing that streak. And he says, you know what? Look how good I am. look, this is a team that looks like they can compete, but I just don't think they're going to be over 500. I think they sell Edwin Encarnacion and possibly others, and then it could be D. Gordon. Maybe they do trade D. Gordon as well, and then they put themselves in a position where they're just not going to be able to win enough games. So I think that they're definitely a fourth-place team in my opinion, and not. They sold way too much for me to say, look, this is a third-place team that could flirt with the playoffs. I don't think they're flirting with the playoffs. I think that they're below 500, and they're not going to be that good. Let's look at the bullpen real quick. Their closing options are Hunter Strickland and Anthony Swarzak. I think that's enough said about the bullpen. And I actually will leave it at that. There's really not much else to look at the bullpen for the Seattle Mariners. Strickland could be a pretty good closer for them. Yeah, I did a decent stint in opportunities with the San Francisco Giants, but it's just not great. It's a huge downgrade from Edwin Diaz, which they used to have. So this is a team that is definitely looking for Kyle Lewis's of their system, possibly to make debuts during the season. The Shed Longs that they got from the Yankees in a 3-team team deal for Sonny Gray. So these are guys that they're probably looking to make opportunities for later in the year. Probably put D. Gordon back at his position to shortstop and maybe give Shed Long a chance at second base throughout the year if Beckham doesn't pan out. Maybe they'll do that sooner rather than expected with Kyle Seager out for a long time. So I think there's enough said about the Seattle team. They're just not going to be good enough in my opinion. But I did tell you that if they somehow get really consistent on both sides, if they get something out of Healy, if they get something out of Beckham, if they get a lot out of Vogelback, if Santana is what he is, and Haniger, that's a good offense. And if Gonzalez, Kikuchi, Leak, and Hernandez can all be consistent, I mean, this is the same for any team. Of course, if. I actually think it's possible with some of these guys, but I guess I just don't see it. Moving on to the Texas Rangers, by far the worst team in this division last year. I think this is a team that continues to have solid players at each position. You lose Adrian Beltre to retirement, so congratulations, Adrian Beltre, probably on your retirement, probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. You have a lot of good hitters around this team. Joey Gallo doesn't hit for average, but he can really hit the ball over the fence in a good hitter's ballpark in Texas. Might be injured to start the season, but guy hit 40 home runs each of the last 2 seasons. All right, so why is this team not? That's a 40 home run guy like Chris Davis, the A's. Shin-Soo Choo continues to be one of the best on-base guys in all of baseball. Last season, his on-base percentage was 378 or 77. Excuse me, one off. It's pretty good. It doesn't get to the 423 that he had in Cincinnati in 2013, but 377. That's really, really good for Shin-Soo Choo. Nomar Mazara, great young player. Rugneda Dor, the stretch he had last year is really good. Elvis Andrus, now you add Asdrubal Cabrera, not Adrian Beltre, but if he's healthy, he could be a solid option at third base. They have options here. Hunter Pence had a really good spring training after adjusting his batting stance in the offseason, so maybe he can come in and do well. You have Willie Calhoun, who's a post-hype prospect who you can compare similar to Clint Frazier, of a guy who, if he gets an opportunity, maybe he can actually show things in the major leagues. Don't know if that's going to happen here, but look, this is a team that has a lot of good talent offensively, but I'm just not sure they're going to be able to do enough. And the pitching. This is a truly journeyman pitching rotation. You want to hear it? Mike Minor, probably their best pitcher, could be traded, but he's a journeyman. Lance Lynn, really good years in Cardinals not too long ago. Okay, subpar year last year between the Twins and the Yankees. Journeyman for sure. Drew Smiley coming off injury, definitely a journeyman. Edison Volquez, after being listed last year with an injury as well, definitely a journeyman. Shelby Miller, who missed a lot of last year as well before coming back because of injury. Third team, maybe beginning stages of a journeyman. So that's your starting 5 rotation. I think there's all names that could do something, right? They're all names that could do something, but will they? I don't know. That's an interesting thing. That's why this team is actually really intriguing to me, because I think the offense around them is okay. Like it could probably start to get things rolling. Ronald Guzman at first base, I forgot to mention. Jeff Mathis behind the plate, okay. I think you'd rather have Isaiah Kinife for Khalifa probably catch, but defensively, probably not the best option. I'm not saying these guys can channel their inner 2013s, but what if they did? Like, what if Lance Lynn was really good? What if Smiley comes back and is actually amazing? What if Edison Volquez, off his injury, is great? Shelby Miller can put together the type of season he had in that 1 year with Atlanta. Like, what if this happens? And it's not easy because the pitcher is a hitter's ballpark. But what if that happens? Like, what if the pitchers actually come back and actually are what they could have been? I know it's a journeyman team, but that means that these guys were good at one point. That is the truth for a lot of these guys. So this is similar to the Seattle Mariners in a sense of like, what if those guys actually put it together? A decent offense around them. Voila, here we go, a team that's competitive. But no, I just don't think so. I think they're under 500. They just haven't done enough to me to show that they can really continue to be competitive enough. The one thing, though, I really have to give this team credit for is their bullpen, especially their closer, and Jose Leclerc. I think he's the best closer. Should I say it? No. But I think he's the best closer that you may not have heard about. I mean, you follow I'm sure, like, if you don't follow baseball or you follow it casually, you might not have even heard of Blake Treinen. So I don't know if that's fair. But look, I think you compare him to Cody Allen. He's better than Cody Allen. He's definitely better than Hunter Strickland. I think you could put him on the same level as Roberto Ozuna. I think that's how good Jose Leclerc is. I think Treinen's like number one, small, very, very little ahead of Ozuna and Leclerc. Leclerc's a really good closer. So that's why if this team actually does really good and you have Leclerc closing things out, I like it. I actually like what this team could do. So I'm a little bit excited to watch the Rangers. I always say at the top of these, I didn't say it at the top of this podcast, but I've always said in the past, like, I'm trying to get positive things out of each team that I preview. So like, if you're listening, if this is your team and you're listening to this, you can at least come out of it. Look, I have some positive things. You can tell I'm a little giddy about this team. Like, this is a team that has guys that are all recognizable, at least for me, and the guys who can really put things together. Like Hunter Pence is another guy who's a journeyman now, who has another chance to kind of reinvigorate his career. Like, this is a team that's actually fun to think about. The problem is, I just don't know. I can't see, like, I need to see Gallo get on base more. I need to see Mazzaro put together that breakout season. I need Odor to be consistent. I need Andrews to be that guy that he used to be. And, of course, I need the starting pitchers all to get back into that mode that they had at one point in their careers. That's where I'm like, I can't quite go there yet. And that's why I'm excited to watch this team, but I can't do it. Of course, you'll get my wildcard team if there is one from this division in the last podcast that I'll have up before the season. Enjoy your Japan games. You're listening to this beforehand. Enjoy Seattle versus Oakland. I'll predict that right here. Why not? I'll predict they split, and I believe a proper send-off to Ichiro will be awesome. It'll be a nice emotional moment when they pull him off the field. I believe Scott Service will do a good job with that. So that I said that split. Oakland might sweep. I think it'll be actually a good thing if Seattle splits. That'll be actually impressive if they split. But I'll give them a split. And I'll say that Seattle wins game number 2, not game number 1. And Ichiro has a nice send-off as well in the second game. So once again, this has been the AL West Division Preview. We got 5 more to go, and you can find those on 1045theteam.com. Click on the podcast tab, and on youtube.com/team1045. The Sittin Sportside podcast is brought to you by DeAndrea's Pizza. DeAndrea's Pizza, one of the best. Mike James told me about DeAndrea's Pizza, and it's really, really, really amazing pizza. Buffalo chicken pizza he told me about, and you know what? It's actually really tasty. I don't know. I can't say I wasn't expecting it because Mike James talked it up so well and so vividly about the pizza. But you know what? It did. I love buffalo chicken on anything, and you're putting it on a pizza, and he has buffalo chicken on. I think he has a calzone, so you can put it on just about anything. I love it. And you can find DeAndrea's Pizza on 33 Caroline Street in Saratoga Springs and on 645 Route 9 in Gansevoort. And tell them you heard it from Eric Hanneman and Mike James on the Sittin Sportside podcast. So I really look forward to you guys looking at the rest or listening to the rest of these and giving me your feedback on these picks and what you would pick for any of these, including if you want to give us any of your season awards and MVP Cy Young, your World Series pick, any of them, or who you have in the American League West. That's at Eric H1045, at Mike James 1045, and give any encouragement you can to Mike as well. Once again, I'm Eric Hanneman. Thank you for listening to the Sittin Sportside podcast, and thank you for sitting Sportside on 1045theteam.com.